Insanity is an ancient affliction, perhaps as old as humanity itself. For much of history, the only thing as painful as the madness was the way mankind tried to deal with it. We've tried to lock it away, cut it out, shock it, or burn it out, but the nightmare refuses to disappear. Madness has always been with us. In ancient cultures, insanity was believed to be the result of a physical affliction, an imbalance of the four body fluids. The brain was the organ of the mind and susceptible to disease. But it wasn't until the Middle Ages that madness was proclaimed a sign of the devil, a punishment by God. Between 1460 and 1680, tens of thousands of mentally ill, mostly women, were burned at the stake as witches or heretics. Inhumane treatment persisted throughout the Renaissance. Victims of mental illness were cast into asylums and prisons, shackled and chained and left to rot in their own waste. By the 19th century, madness had become a subject for science. Still, new techniques for study, confinement, and suppression of lunacy were little more humane and no more productive than what had come before. With the 20th century and the birth of psychiatry, the disease of paranoia, withdrawal, and hallucination was defined and named. Schizophrenia, the affliction of the fragmented mind. Modern therapies like electroshock and lobotomy could still be abusive. Science had tracked the nightmare to the brain, but man was still determined to cut it out. The first real breakthrough in treatment came in 1951 with the discovery of neuroleptic drugs in France, powerful medications which diminish the experience of psychosis. Numbed by these powerful drugs, people with schizophrenia could return to a life outside of the walled institutions. But medication can only moderate the symptoms, the experience of a life lived in constant sensory overload, captive to a brain unable to tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined.
Well, schizophrenia is definitely now acknowledged to be a biologic illness. And this has really changed in the past couple of decades particularly, where now I think it's acknowledged overall that it's definitely a physiologic condition.
In early diagnosis of schizophrenia is that it doesn't have a typical presentation. So commonly somebody doesn't present with hallucinations or delusions. They'll have problems in terms of feeling strange or feeling weird, but they won't be able to tell you about it. They'll often withdraw because of those feelings, or they'll start having anger or sadness, moods that you wouldn't have normally seen and you don't understand why. They'll often start doing poorly in school where they may have been a very good student before, or they'll withdraw from sports or other social activities that they would have normally partaken in.
And so therefore the onus is on the physician to have the skills to build some rapport, to develop a comfort level. Those are the clinical skills you need to collect the clinical information that's so important.
The first important thing is to at least have schizophrenia as one of the things that is there, not as the most probable thing, but just simply one of the things to think about. Because as soon as you've at least got it on your list, then there's a likelihood that you look for the specific things that could point towards it being schizophrenia.
Response tended to be to put the person off, to delay treatment, and to hope that things would right themselves and go away. And we now know that this is exactly the wrong thing to do, that you can actually make a really big difference to the person's prognosis if you begin treatment as early as possible.
There certainly is some suggestion that if treatment is delayed, there may be more permanent and non-reversible changes in the brain.
The theory is that psychosis itself may be toxic to the brain. It's not been truly shown that that's the case, but certainly we have shown that over a 2-year period, if you find somebody early on in their episode of psychosis, you'll have a much better outcome over that 2 years than you will if you find somebody later on in their psychosis.
If schizophrenia is going to be a disorder that goes on for years and years, then effective treatment has got to be collaboration. There's got to be a collaboration between the patient and the family and the professionals, the doctor and the other professionals involved.
It's very definitely an illness that I feel hopeful about. Even having worked with it for the past 10 years, I continue to be very hopeful. When I see somebody, particularly early on, that has this condition, I really feel like I have some meaningful things to offer them in terms of both medicine and non-medicine treatment to help them to maintain the good things in their life and help them to build on that.
I have a lot of hope. I'm pretty positive about my life and stuff, so to anybody who has a mental illness, I say, yeah, life's still possible.
Imagine a world where a busy restaurant feels like the front lines of a battlefield. Where every sound, every voice, every note of music were all firing at you at the same volume.
Ça va pas toi? Ça va pas?
Imagine that in every glance you felt people were reading your mind, injecting thoughts into your head. That all of those imagined voices inside of your head are screaming at once in a language you don't understand.
Excusez-moi, monsieur, vous désirez un apéritif?
Imagine living trapped in a world with no boundaries between self and other. No border between your own thoughts and the thoughts of others. For millions of people around the globe, this is everyday life. Life in the world of schizophrenia.